And I will agree with you, Andy, that it was different times, for sure. But if you expect me to believe that Lee Harvey got off 3 shots from over 100 yards away, 6 floors up, kind of around the corner, no scope, just a bolt action. No, I call BS on that one. Even though 1964, the Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, and Jack Ruby acted alone 2 days later. Right. 1976, the Select Committee on Assassinations, and that was by the House of Representatives, investigating John F. Kennedy as well as Martin Luther King Jr. They concluded that there probably was a second shooter on the grassy knolls. Huh. Interesting. I mean, besides, come on, the Kennedys were no stranger to organized crime. That's going to be kind of where I'm going with this. You can't really talk about John F. Kennedy assassination without some serious background information, and that would involve Joe Kennedy, and it would also involve Sam Giancana. Now, Joe Kennedy swore up and down he didn't make his money in prohibition and bootlegging. However, Oni Madden, Joseph Bonanno, Frank Costello, the New York Lower East Side, the Meyer Lansky Bug Siegel gang, they all claim ties to Kennedy, to Joe. Besides that, his liquor, Kennedy brand liquor, was flowing everywhere through prohibition. So to say that, he didn't make any money, he says that because he's a Kennedy. But facts remain that he was in with all of those people. Sam Giancana, we all know, was a well-known, huge American mobster. He started out in Al Capone's outfit in Chicago. He rose to prominence and basically ran the outfit from 1957 to 1966. And back then, the mob was a lot different than it is portrayed now and things like that. They really ought to, America, especially the labor unions, AFL-CIO, the truckers unions, things like that, that's kind of how the mob ran those years. During the 1960s, Sam Giancana was recruited by John F. Kennedy and the CIA to assassinate Fidel Castro. And so, the ties are already starting to make themselves clear. There's the whole 1960s election fiasco. You think elections could be rigged now? Ha! Surely you jest. Back then, John F. Kennedy carried the labor vote in such metropolitan areas as Chicago, Detroit, New York, Boston. The labor vote in 1960 was the mafia. I'm sorry, they owned the unions, they owned everything that had to be mob-related was the mob. I mean, mob. That's the 1960s. And for the election to go the way that it did was the union carried the election for Kennedy. Okay, beat Nixon out in places where he shouldn't have really beat Kennedy out. So we've got that whole doing a favor for Joe, doing John. You know, you got Sam, you got Joe. Got the son running for president. There's a tie right there. As soon as John gets in the office, what the hell happens? Bobby decides to declare war on organized crime. He's going after the Irish mob, Dad's connections, and the Italian mob, people that put him in the White House. Needless to say, this was kind of torqued out, the mafia. It's bad blood to do stuff like that. You don't give your word, and that's what Joe did. He said, look, you get my son elected, we're all buds here, and that's not how it happened. So, we've got that going on. Now we got JFK unsuccessful in overturning Castro down in Havana. 1961, the rebels took over. The mob had invested billions of dollars down there. Billions and billions of dollars. They recruited Sam. He worked with the president. They couldn't get it done. The mob was very disappointed that JFK didn't follow through and keep that island open. If you guys remember in the film The Irishman, when the crime boss, Russell Bufalino, was played by Joe Pesci, where he said, and I quote, if they can knock off a president, they can knock off the president of a union. Of course, he was talking about Hoffa at the time, but still, that's what he said. Let's talk about Judith Campbell. Who is Judith Campbell, you say? Judith Campbell was the mistress of Sam Giancana and JFK. That's right, they were sharing a girlfriend. Again, not only that, but Judith said later that she allegedly, and I say that because that's how it was quoted to me. Even though she said it, they still say. But anyway, she acted as a courier between Sam Giancana and JFK before the 1960 election and after the election. So we've got Sam talking to Joe, talking to John, and Bobby's just got everybody pissed off because he's declared war on organized crime. We're tying this in pretty good. Oswald, you still think? Boys and girls, surely you jest. Let's talk about Frank. Frank Sinatra. Why bring Frank up? Frank has ties, along with Dean and Sammy, to the mafia. They did gigs in Vegas. Frank Sinatra sued Paramount Pictures and Francis Ford Coppola because of the portrayal of Johnny Fontana in the movie The Godfather. And if you remember, that was the singer that used mafia ties to break it big. Why did he sue him, I wonder? It's just a movie. Movies are pretend, right, Andy? Yeah. So we got Frank in the mix of this. Now remember, when John F. Kennedy inaugural ball, Frank Sinatra was scheduled to perform. Why did he not perform? Because he had mafia ties. That was the exact reason given. More pieces, putting this all together. Marilyn Monroe. Why do I bring up Marilyn Monroe? Why not? Marilyn was the mistress of Sam Giancana, John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and allegedly maybe Peter Lawford. She was a sex symbol of the 50s. You all know who Marilyn is. But she's in there. And she's in there because she's sleeping with John F. Kennedy. She's sleeping with Sam Giancana. Maybe, I don't know, Judith Campbell. See, this mob don't like people sleeping with their girlfriends or having their islands taken over and losing billions of dollars in revenue from losing their casinos. And they certainly don't like their little brother coming after the mob. So you got Marilyn involved in this now. And that is because Marilyn was a player in all of these people's lives. Do you remember Happy Birthday, Mr. President? Do you remember that? Yeah. Marilyn singing to our president. Happy birthday. Sorry. So, you got Marilyn in here. Now, the reason I'm Marilyn bringing this in is because of Cal Neve in Lake Tahoe. Google it. Google it right now while I'm waiting. Da, 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 da. That's right. Cal Neve. That is a motel, hotel, casino, Lake Tahoe, Nevada, where, from an invite from Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe showed up. Not only was Marilyn there, Sam Giancana was there, JFK was there, Bobby Kennedy was there. This was all orchestrated allegedly by Frank Sinatra, and what they wanted to do is get Bobby and or John in compromising positions with Marilyn because the mob had it up to here because, they lost money in the casino business. Bobby's going after them, here. Joe didn't keep his, okay? Plus, John Kennedy is sleeping with all of the mobsters' wives. Not a good idea. Not a very good idea. Now, documentation has it that while Marilyn was at Cal Neve, she called Joe DiMaggio scared to death. Can you imagine Marilyn Monroe for just a minute? Say what you will about her. Oh, she got around, she did this, she did that. Sam Giancana, John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, these are the most powerful, scary men in the world. She must have been scared to death. I can't imagine. But the rumor is that she called Joe DiMaggio, told Joe, come get me. Frank called Joe back, said, don't come here. You'll be a hurting unit. Frank's backed by Sam Giancana, who are now angry with JFK, trying to set him up. Marilyn Monroe died August 5th, 1962. She died of suicide, and I say that loosely. She was discovered lying in bed, face down, telephone put in her hand, and her pill bottles all scattered around the room. No diary anywhere. Took 5 hours from the time she was discovered to get the police there. Where's the diary? The diary. No one, the diary where she writes everything, like sleeping with Jack and sleeping with Bobby and blowing Sam and being scared out of her mind. Where is it? It's gone. Poof. Maid says it was there the night before. Wow. Autopsy on Marilyn found a fatal amount of barbiturates in her system, but did not find any barbiturate residue in her stomach. No obvious needle marks, but there was anal bruising. If you read the book, You Paint Houses, Don't You?, on which the movie The Irishman was based, Russell Ono says in there that Marilyn Monroe was killed to keep from talking about Sam and Jack, Bobby, because she told Frank that weekend, heck with you guys, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to set up the Kennedys. They had her killed. If Joe DiMaggio would have showed up, she might be still alive. Frank intimidated him. In the movie, in that Irishman, they stated that she was killed by the mob, given us suppositories, overdose. It makes sense with the autopsy. I don't believe for a minute that Marilyn Monroe committed suicide, nor do I think that, Lee Harvey shot John F. Kennedy. Jack Ruby. No discussion would be complete without Jack Ruby. Now, Jack Ruby was a Dallas mobster. Wow, what a surprise, another mobster. Part of the Jewish mobster that had witch ties and had relocated from guess where? Chicago. Numerous witnesses reportedly see Ruby at pivotal points before, during, and after the assassination. But the Warren Report didn't really think that was necessary to talk to him. Jim Morris' book, Crossfire, Plot That Killed the Kennedy, details Ruby's movements that are very suspicious, at least. Now, if Jack Ruby is a mobster from the Jewish mob from Chicago with ties to the Chicago outfit, first of all, mobsters just don't shoot people because they're patriotic Americans and are mad about what happened to John. That's, first of all, they got to get permission from the boss to do. Coffee's good this Monday, Andy, thanks.
Awesome.
Who do you think he got permission from?
The mob.
The mob.
The mob.
And it'd be Sam Giancana especially. So here we are again. It's all coming back. They're all sleeping with the same girls. They're hanging with the same circles. What's the old saying? If you lie down with dogs, you're going to wake up with fleas. Boy, I'm telling you, Kennedy had some fleas, didn't he? Melba Christine Marcades. She is such a smoking gun that she made it into Oliver Stone's JFK movie. And who is Melba, do you say? She's a drug runner and a dancer for Jack Ruby at the Carousel Club. His mob headquarters in Dallas, which is overseen by, I hate to bash this over and over, but Sam Giancana in Chicago. She was traveling to Miami with two mobsters. She got in a wreck and ended up in a Louisiana hospital. Google Melba Christine Marcades. That's M-A-R. She told everybody who would listen that there was a plot to kill John F. Kennedy, and she heard it at Jack Ruby's club. She told everybody. 2 days later, guess what? Yep, that's right. That's right. That's right. Guess what? He was shot. Now, any conspiracy theory, whatever I got going here this morning, and it's just my belief, I guess, I've done some looking around, research. First of all, let me explain to you 1960 when John F. Kennedy was elected, 1963 when his assassination. This was a scant 7 years away from Appalachia. Appalachia is when some farmer and some off-duty cop and Gomer Pyle stumbled onto this hunting lodge, which confirmed and found members of the families from all over the country, so it confirmed the mafia. So we're only 7 years later. Did they? Bobby was the first person in history to crack down on organized crime. And look how that turned out. They took it out on Bobby by killing his brother. Do I know who pulled the trigger? Nope, I sure don't. But I find it awful funny that all these names keep coming up. John slept with this mobster's wife. He slept with this mobster's girlfriend. He's banging Marilyn Monroe, and so is Sam and Frank. Frank can't go to the inauguration because he's a mobster. Sam and Jack are sending messages through their mistress. Joe's making deals with Sam. Sam's making deals with the government. Cuba's fallen. Bobby's being not cool about the whole thing. Yeah, it's extremely plausible in my opinion, and it's more plausible than the Warren report that just said, yeah, Oswald went up there and did it, and Ruby got mad and shot him. Boulder Dash. I ain't buying it one bit. It's a conspiracy, I tell you. And I'm just trying to tell you guys the truth right now, how I see it. Can you handle the truth? Don't forget, there's some other key parts here. 1976, the House Select Committee on Assassinations that was investigating JFK, Castro, Martin Luther King. Remember, Sam Giancana was due to testify. He ran off to Mexico, came back to the United States, had the feds sitting outside his house 24/7. He knew Sam knew everything. Sam and his right-hand man, Johnny Rosselli. What happened to Sam? Sam was assassinated 3 days before he was supposed to testify. He was assassinated while he was making peppers, beans, and something Italian.
Sausages?
Sausages, yes sir. Good call, Andy. And he was shot in the back of the head. Then he was shot 6 times in the mouth, which was a message because he was due to testify about the assassination committee and Castro. 4 days later, Sam's right-hand man, John Rosselli, was found in a barrel, floating off the coast in Miami. He was also due to testify for the same committee. Now, the problem with my theory is that everybody's dead. They all killed each other. Sam got whacked. Marilyn got whacked. The only person that made it is Frank. Frank ain't giving up. Frank knows. So, my theory on who killed the Kennedys is the Chicago outfit, along with the CIA, the Warren report. Don't do it for me. There's just no way. It just doesn't make any sense. So, that's my take on how did we get into John F. Kennedy this morning? Jeez. Monday morning, we're going to do an assassination with John F. Kennedy. All right. So, as we do every Monday morning, I'm going to kind of wind things down a little bit. Andy, it's time to get out of here.
Yeah, we got the
news segment coming up. Let's start with the Ukraine. We got a real Donnybrook going over there right now. Big news over the weekend that Putin has appointed Alexander Dvorkov. I bet you if he was a Russian hockey player, I could say his name. Alexander Dvorkov is the Syrian monster of death. He's the guy who unleashed chemical weapons and gases. He Russia's losing this. Putin's looking bad. He's pulling out all stops. This general pick is really cause for alarm for the people, the children and women, dogs that are in Ukraine. He's a bad man, and I expect bad things coming. In counter from NATO, United Kingdom has now jumped in. They're giving anti-tank weapons. Canada's sending Stingers. Slavia's sending surface-to-air missiles. It sure sounds to me like NATO's getting involved. We have to remember one thing. Russia does have a tactical nuclear scenario where it would be okay for them to use those in certain case scenarios, and that they don't need a first strike from NATO. I think that with Putin, with his back against the wall, putting this general in, more arms going to the Ukraine, more atrocities. Look what they're doing. The body count, they're killing civilians, kids, dogs. It's heartbreaking what they're doing over there. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why you like you are? She tweeted this weekend, and I quote, Murkowski, Collins, Mitt Romney are all pro-pedophile. They just voted for KBJ for the Supreme Court. Pedophiles, really? While Jimmy Kimmel replied on air in his opening monologue, where is Will Smith when you really need him? Marjorie retorted by calling the police. As a comic, I'm just starting to not understand this anymore. I hope that I haven't offended anyone out there with my jokes. I certainly don't want you calling the police or beating me up over it. When did we get the right to do this? As a comedian, I want to know. Go ahead and PM me. Let me know that words are hurting you, and this is how you're dealing with it. I can't take it any other way. Words hurt. Is that what we are now? Back in my day, words didn't hurt. We sucked it up, went out and fist fought in the parking lot, drank beer together that night. So, I think we covered her today.
Yeah.
Take the JFK for what it's worth. But, like I said before, sure looks like a duck. Sure walks like a duck. Must be.
Yeah.
Andy, we good?
Yeah, I think we're sitting real good.
We're good here. All right, everybody, have a great week. Thanks for joining me this Monday morning. Remember, as always, have a great week. Kiss your dogs and learn to duck and cover.